All right, so you want to start your own home studio, pottery studio. I think you should. I think you should. Now, there's a few things that I want to make sure that y'all have understood before you jump into this world of home studio. Have you taken a class? Surprisingly, a lot of people want to start a home studio and get the wheel and get the kiln and get the stuff and get the clay and get the glaze and get the tools and get the bench and blah, blah, blah. Before they even taken a class, they saw it and they thought it was cool, and then they want to jump into the world. So, pause. Take a step back and think to yourself, do I even know what's going on? Oh, do I even know what's going on? Do I even know what pottery really is? It's a lot. So, have I taken a class? Have you taken a community college class? Have you taken a course from maybe a potter that's offering classes multiple weeks, 6 weeks at least, 6 to 8 weeks? Have you taken at least one? Surprisingly, a lot of people haven't, and they want to do this. I get it all the time in my shop. They come into my shop, they go, oh, I love this. I've always wanted to do pottery, and I want to get a wheel. I'm like, have you taken a class before? And they go, oh no, I watch Great Pottery Throwdown, and I think it's gonna be so much fun. I'm like, hold up, wait a minute, go to YouTube and watch this video. Slow down. Pottery is very hard. Takes a lot of skill, takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of practice, takes guidance, takes knowing people. Just pause. I'm happy that you want to. Trust me. I think pottery is a beautiful, beautiful art. And I think it's very achievable for almost anyone to learn. But to set up a home studio should be something after you've taken a class, multiple courses, gotten some mentorship, and then jump into it, okay? So one class ain't gonna cut it. 2 classes ain't gonna cut it. You're gonna need a course, and you're gonna need a course from someone who's decent. There's a lot of people out here doing classes and whatnot, and they cram 10 people in a class, and they get their money, and they let you play around on the wheel a little bit, and then they call it a day, and you honestly didn't learn anything. So that's no shade towards these places, but it honestly hurts someone who really wants to learn, because they go into a situation like that and they're in a class of a bunch of people to one teacher, and they don't get the guidance, and they pinch it wrong one time and it flops everywhere, and they're like, pottery's way too hard, I'm never going to do this again, which is very, very sad. I try to do my classes 2 to 4 people, and so that I can be a little more intentional and not have as many people stray away from it. So find a place that has a good teacher. Ask around, maybe go to your clay supply if you have one in town, and ask them, who's a good teacher, and be honest with me. And they'll tell you, hopefully, a good person to learn from. Do a little research on the person and make sure they're legit, because a lot of people, they just buy wheels and then they have very, very little experience throwing, and they're trying to teach a class of 10 people. If you get into that class, you're not gonna learn anything. Honestly, you're not. You're gonna learn how to maybe touch the clay. You're gonna learn how the wheel spins, but you're not gonna learn hard skills at all. It's just, it's kind of sad. A lot of these places are cash cows and cash grabs, and they just wanna make money, honestly. They'll say they're there for the artists, but they're not. And they're all over the United States, and pottery's trending, and everybody's opening their studio. So, yeah, and this is just observing online too, communal studios I see online. It's just like, you're gonna get people in there that really, really, really want to learn it, and you're gonna misguide them, and they're gonna think pottery is something that it's not. It's a very hard skill, but they're gonna think it's impossible. So try to find someone who is legit and teaching you a course. I think it's worth the money if you really, 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 really want to do it. Start pottery for real. You need to find a private class, 2 people max, and you're gonna have someone who's very experienced to walk your hand through the beginning, because you need it. and you don't want to go invest $1,000 in a wheel, 1,000 plus. Honestly, 1,000 is cheap. 1,000 in a wheel, hundreds of dollars in a kiln, hundreds of dollars in clay, hundreds of dollars in glazes, hundreds of dollars in tools. You don't want to go dive headfirst into that without taking a private class. Try to find a private. That is what I would say. It's going to cost some moolah, but it's better to spend $400 or $500 with a private situation instead of going to a $115 situation and not be guided well. So spend a little extra money if you really want to get into it, get a good course, get a good mentor, and see if you can start learning. After the class, you want to find a good mentor and see if you can help them in their studio, see if you can help them with tasks around the shop and kind of learn like, okay, they put their wheel over here and then they put their bench over here and they put their kiln over here and shelves over here. This is kind of how a studio looks. Okay, cool. And you're going to gain all this knowledge, not just about the wheel itself and the throwing of the pots. You're going to learn how they process their recycle, how they store their glazes, how they mix glazes, because a lot of people, they jump into pottery and then they start buying these pints, and pints are so expensive. It's like $30, $20 for a little pint when you could spend $30, $40 and get a whole 5-gallon bucket if you do it yourself, which takes skills and you have to learn how to do that. So find someone who knows how to do all that and start shadowing them, and hopefully they let you throw in their studio at some point and they can critique you and be honest with you and try to not find someone who's just like, you make it and it's all crap. And then they go, oh, good job, you did it. That's not who you want. You want the guy who goes, oh, and acts like it's too heavy to hold. Oh man, like this is too heavy. That's the guy I want. I want the guy who's gonna say it sucks, okay? It's 2024 and everybody's too sensitive, and try to find someone who's gonna make you a little sad. Find the person who's gonna make you a little sad. It's not like a bad thing, it's just, like you worked really hard on it and you thought it was really good, and then they're gonna come along and say it's too heavy right here, this angle's bad, this doesn't make sense. Find that person. You're gonna take it back and you're gonna be like, oh, okay. But don't be a big baby and go fix the issues. Honestly, like a lot of this is no shade. This is not a diss on artists, but like a lot of artists are way too sensitive. Like way too sensitive. If you want to get good, you got to get critiqued hard. Does that make sense? If you aren't taking critique well, you are going to fail. Because like, I remember like in college football, I would get yelled at all the time. But what if they didn't yell at me? I would just keep doing it wrong and then I wouldn't play. You aren't going to play in the world of ceramics if you don't like take the constructive criticism. Don't get a guy who's like a complete jerk, but get the guy who's honest, you know, or woman. So yeah, do that. Find a mentor. Look up local potters in blank city and shoot them a message. They might help you. I mean, I have like 3 people that help me. So found them through them doing my classes, or I found them through just asking. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, you come sweep my studio and do X, Y, Z for 2 hours, and you get an hour on the wheel, and I'll kind of be around to tell you if you're doing it wrong. And that will boost you. That will boost you quick. So do that. Find someone, and then after a while of working with and along them, start looking at buying your own wheel. Start looking at buying your own kiln. If you have like a garage or something like that, look at setting it up in there. But this is after you've seen, okay, this is how a studio looks. This is what is really involved in it, and this and that, and this and that. And then you're not $4,000 in needing more stuff. You kind of see, okay, I can only spend $2,000 and have this, that, and this because I don't need this, this, and this. Because you went to an actual studio, an actual production place, an actual potter who's doing it for a living, and you learned from them, and you have discovered it doesn't take that much. All this stuff they try to sell you, you don't really need it. I use 4 tools to throw. When I first started, I was like, I'm gonna try this tool, I'm gonna try this tool, which is fine. but you end up only using like 3 or 4 tools at the end of the day after you've been in it for a while. So 8 years in, and I only use 4 tools. You think I would use a whole bunch, but I really use 4 things. I use a rib, a flat rib. I use a needle tool sometimes, and I don't really use a throwing stick anymore, to carve the bottoms. I just use my finger, and I use a wire and a sponge. That's about all I use. That's really all I use. You don't need that much. So practice around people who are doing it for a living. Take a course, get around people who are doing it for a living, and then see if you want to invest the thousands of dollars that it takes to start a home studio. If so, I will have a new video soon on what you need to start your home studio. Don't rush it. Don't rush it. Please, please, please don't rush the process. It's gonna suck. So that being said, that's what I would do before I start a home studio. I'm not even talking about starting a home studio yet, because you needed to hear this first. You needed to hear this first. You don't need a home studio yet. If you haven't done a full course, and if you haven't gone at least a year of mentorship, you don't need a home studio. You don't. You don't. Maybe take a course and get in a communal studio. Those are okay. I would rather learn from someone doing it for a living, but a communal studio is not that bad. Slave away in there, and then find a mentor, and then ask them some advice on starting the studio. What kind of wheel, what kind of kiln, what kind of this, what kind of that. But if you've been in an actual production studio for XYZ amount of time, you're gonna understand, I only need this wheel, and I need these tools because I've used them, and I need this type of kiln because I have used it before. And I need this kind of glaze because I have used it, and I have the recipe, and I don't need to go spend $500 in glaze pints that I have to brush on. That's the other thing. Brushing on pint glazes is terrible. I would never want to do that. I mix my own glazes. I dip them. I dip my glazes. Forget that brush mess. No thanks. No. But a lot of people, they get into pottery too quick, and that's all they know how to do is the brush glazes, and that's all they do. They're brushers. Nothing wrong with it, but if you're gonna do it for a living, you don't wanna be brushing every freaking pot. You're gonna be doing it forever, and it's gonna take a whole day, and it sucks. So, for example, that's a ramble about brush glazes, but the time it takes for one person to brush one mug, I can glaze 20 with dip glazes. So find someone who's going to teach you all that stuff. It's probably someone doing it for a living. Find them and learn. Yeah, that's what I would do. Catch me for part 2 of this discussion on starting my home studio. I have to get through this first. This is important. This is the stuff you need before the home studio. Please don't go into a home studio without taking a class at least, or having a mentor. Just don't do it. Peace out. You're gonna thank me later. I will see you in part 2.